Hey there, how's it going everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Loose Lipped No Script, the series where I want to talk about something but couldn't be bothered to make a full review on it because I'm lazy. So yeah, this time we're going to be covering Monster Hunter World because if I was to give this the regular review treatment, I'd probably be here like 3 years later still writing stuff down on the script because I have that much to say about this game. So overall, I guess I should start by saying I did enjoy it. I've got almost 500 hours in this game, so you don't usually spend 500 hours on something unless you enjoy it. Well, unless it's your job, but I'm talking about entertainment, I guess. And even then, I've come across people and they've said, I've put 2,000 hours into my Monster Hunter games, and I'm like, damn. I don't think I've ever put that much time into one single game. I might have more hours in Final Fantasy XIV, but I'm not sure. I'd have to check. But yeah, this game is definitely up there as far as how much time I've put into it. And I will say, this is not actually my first Monster Hunter game. I mean, technically it's not. Technically the first one I played was Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate. On 3DS. I played the tutorial and then the first 2 missions, I think. I didn't get very far. And it's not that I didn't like it, I just never really picked it back up after that. This one, though, I did warm up to it quite a bit. And actually, well, for those of you who follow this channel, that's already, pretty obvious to you guys, but I'm actually a, how do I put it? I'm like a God Eater refugee, if that makes sense. I discovered Monster Hunter through God Eater. I played the 3 God Eater games, and I got done with 3, and then, they haven't made a new God Eater in a while, so I was kind of looking for games that were kind of sort of similar to it, and that's when I found out, oh, God Eater is basically just anime Monster Hunter. I mean, as a very simplistic description, there are some major differences, but overall, they sort of have the same, core gameplay mechanics. Okay, this series was inspired by Monster Hunter, so let me play Monster Hunter and maybe it'll kind of give me more of the same thing. And it sort of did. Again, not really one-to-one the same, but similar enough that it could definitely scratch that itch. I did find that this game was a bit slower and more deliberate with combat as opposed to God Eater, which was, faster, flashier, and more action-y, but, like I said, they're similar enough. Now, the overall premise of the game, it's very simplistic, because as I came to realize, unlike God Eater, Monster Hunter doesn't really have much of a story. I heard Monster Hunter 4 Ultimate had a story, like a proper one. But, well, when I say 4 Ultimate, I mean 4 and 4 Ultimate. I assume 4 Ultimate is just 4 with some extra stuff, but 4 had somewhat of a story, but it was kind of the exception and not the rule. And a lot of Monster Hunter games, I played Generations for a little bit. I put 20 hours into that. And it was definitely more of a, you just get a message from someone, from a client, and it's just, one monster to the next sort of thing. There isn't really a sort of continuous narrative. And God Eater didn't do that. God Eater tried to give you a very good reason for why you were doing your hunting. Monster Hunter World kind of tried to, it was intended to be sort of a sort of another entry point for newcomers. So they tried to somewhat give it more of a story. And even then, the story in this game, it is very bare bones. The characters, obviously, your silent protagonist, has a name and you can name your Palico. But outside of that, none of the other characters have names. They're all just referred to by their titles. So, the team leader, the commander, the handler, the tracker, the botanist, the researcher, and so on. Yeah, nobody has proper names. Actually, no, that's not true. There is one character. He does have a proper name, but you don't find out what it is until the end of Iceborne, and I don't know. It's mostly irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. It's just one of those sort of cool to know type of things that they just drop. Oh, another thing I should bring up. So, one of the things also too about making Monster Hunter, trying to make it more, I guess, newcomer friendly. I learned this some time ago. Even though the game is called Monster Hunter World, it's supposed to be Monster Hunter 5, because I was kind of wondering, I'm like, okay, when is the next numbered Monster Hunter game? Is this one a spin-off? No, this one is a mainline game. It's supposed to be Monster Hunter 5, they just didn't put the 5 on it because they wanted to make it less daunting. Although they probably still could have put the 5 there. I mean, Final Fantasy has numbers, Street Fighter has numbers. I mean, you know, you can make games that are kind of, you know, I understand like big numbers can be daunting, but like, it doesn't take much to just explain if it can be played on its own, and if so, then why. But anyway, I don't know, I don't work at Capcom. But yeah, as I was saying, back to the story, it is very kind of simplistic. The majority of the game takes place in this place called the New World. It's this island that's full of, like, you know, obviously, you know, monsters and plant life and other stuff that, you know, you have to research for science and shit, I guess. And basically, this place is being investigated gradually. Several waves of humans, or fleets as they're called in this game, sort of came over and gradually started expanding the operation. So for example, like, first fleet came over and they established like the bare necessities, so like just basic housing, basic food, you know, just the basics. Then the second fleet came over and they're like the actually I'm gonna head up here. They were responsible for like engineering and infrastructure, or at least like better infrastructure type of things, and blacksmithing. And another thing, they're also the ones who they're gonna craft you your new weapons and armor and stuff whenever you collect monster parts. So yeah, a lot of them, they're located over here. Then you have the third fleet, and the third fleet is a bunch of scholars. Like the entire organization is kind of research based, but the third fleet is the ones that really, you know, especially do like, you know, researching the plant and animal life and keeping like, you know, detailed records of everything that's going on, you know, for later use. Fourth fleet, I forgot what exactly they did, but I want to say they probably just came and made everything that was already there a bit better. So just sort of reinforced and improved on what was already there, you know, dotted the I's, crossed the T's. Yeah, the story, you know, starts with you, the fifth fleet, you're on your ship, you headed over here, but then you get stopped by this giant monster. He's called Zora Magdaros. And I do mean giant, like he's not like just giant, he's like abnormally big, he's like the size of a mountain. Like, when you fight Zora Magdaros like properly in the story, it's actually a mini game. You don't fight him like normally. You kind of scale him and climb around him, and you have to like destroy all of his cores and stuff. So his fight is actually more of a mini game than a proper fight. But yeah, Zora Magdaros sinks your ship, and then you like hop on like a wing drake, which are like these pterodactyl looking animals. You can grapple onto them and you can fly over to certain places. You can do that during gameplay as well. And that's how you get over to the New World. So it's a bumpy ride. Then you get there, you get settled in, and that's when the game kind of falls into the sort of pattern that most Monster Hunter games do, where it's just, you know, narrative takes a backseat and it's kind of just, you know, one monster to the next type of thing. Although I will say, you know, I just said it doesn't have much of a story. It does sort of have like environmental storytelling, if that makes sense. Like, it does gradually show you like how the ecosystem works and how certain monsters interact with each other, the different like sort of various food chains, which monsters adhere to which others on the pecking order, you know, that type of shit. You fight Zora Magdaros at around like I'd say the halfway point, and then Zora Magdaros, I think he was trying to I don't remember all the details because it's been a while since I beat like the base game. It's been a while since I cleared that part of the game. I want to say Zora Magdaros was trying to reach, I think it was called the Everstream or whatever. He was trying to get to some destination, but if he actually got there, like it would have been like very bad for a lot of species, including us, the humans. So we had to kind of put a stop to that. That happens a lot in this game, where like a monster might be doing its thing, but its thing could entail our extinction, so we kind of have to make sure that doesn't happen. You fight some more monsters, you know, again, same loop of, okay, go kill this monster, okay, good, now go kill this monster type of shit. I should talk about like the different monster classifications. There is like a hierarchy of monster types, if that makes sense. You got small monsters, which are, for the most part, either herbivores or like, you know, very small predators. And then you have large monsters, which is basically like everything else. But amongst the large monsters, you have different types of wyverns, because almost every monster in this game is some type of dragon. Like, even the ones that don't really look all that much like dragons are still dragons. Like, there's one called Zenogre, like, and like he kind of looks like a dog, but he's still a wyvern, so like, you know. And he does have scales, like if you look really closely at him, you can still see some scales, but you get what I mean. I like Zenogre, he's a good pupper, but you know. You've got fanged wyverns, which are, they're monsters, you know, they usually have fangs, obviously, but you know, they usually tend to, most fanged wyverns are kind of a middle ground between like a dragon and like a mammal. They usually kind of crawl around on all fours. Then you have flying wyverns, which are, well, they're monsters and they usually have, obviously, wings. You know, they usually got 2 legs and then their wings. I think Rathalos is probably one of the, Rathalos is like iconic. He's kind of like the face of Monster Hunter. But you've got your flying wyverns. You've got bird wyverns, which one of them literally is a bird, but most bird wyverns I've found are just sort of smaller. Then you've got brute wyverns, and most of those, they're kind of shaped like T-Rexes. They have like 2 really big legs that they use for running real fast, and then they have stubby arms, and then they attack usually by either biting at you or swiping you with their tails. And then there's the sort of highest order of monster, which is elder dragons. Elder dragons are kind of like, you could view them the same way as you would like a legendary Pokemon or a mega level Digimon, or, you know, they're like, you know, the monsters. Even amongst elder dragons, you know, they're, you know, there's still like a hierarchy, but yeah. And apparently like elder dragons are like so powerful that you can't capture them. Because you can either, for most monsters, you can either kill them outright or you can capture them. You can craft like traps, and when they're almost dead, you can like plant the trap and then throw some tranq bombs at them when they get caught in the trap, and you can capture them. And capturing is usually really good because it gets you more materials, so usually I've found that capturing is better if you can help it than just killing them outright. But elder dragons, you can't capture them because like lore wise, in terms of like story, it's just too dangerous to bring something like that back to base, because, you know, if it wakes up, I guess it'll, like, cause trouble. Although, what's weird is there is a monster called, like, Rajang. It's like a monkey. Kind of looks like a bull and a monkey combined. And he can turn Super Saiyan, so that's fun. But yeah, Rajang, even though he's, like, not an elder dragon, he's not even a dragon, he's just a beast. He's not an elder dragon, but he's capable of going toe-to-toe with elder dragons, but you can capture him, so it's like, I don't know. You can't capture elder dragons, but you can capture a monster that's capable of beating an elder dragon. That's, yeah, I don't know, plot hole, I guess. Yeah, Zoromagdaros was also an elder dragon, albeit, like I said, he's really, really big. He's abnormally big, so even though there's other elder dragons out there that are stronger than him, like, he's definitely, you know, the biggest. But that doesn't mean he's the strongest, if that makes sense. But yeah, after you beat Zoromagdaros, you do some more missions. The end of Zoromagdaros, because the game is split into 3 arcs. The first 2 arcs form the base game, and then the third one forms Iceborne. So from the beginning of the game up until the end of Zoromagdaros is low rank. From Zoromagdaros up until the final boss of the base game is high rank, and then all of Iceborne is considered master rank. And then every time you go up a rank, you also, you know, it also opens the door for new armor, new weapon upgrades, and so on. But yeah, Zoromagdaros is beaten, you know, you go through some more hunts. The base game actually ends with you fighting this monster called Jiva. You actually get to see it sort of form right in front of you. It basically, it was a dragon, but it was formed like purely from like energy from the Elder's Recess. So I think that was kind of cool. But yeah, he's the final boss of the game. You beat him, and yeah, that's the end of the base game. Like I said, the game really doesn't have that much of a story. I'm gonna talk about the weapons now. I do have something else to show you on the way there. You do get your own room. You get 3 different rooms for the base game and then 1 for Iceborne. I'll show you the Iceborne when we actually get to Iceborne. But yeah, I think this is the first, like, version of your room that you end up in when you first start the game. Yeah, then you have the private quarters, which is a slightly better looking room. You've got the private suite, which is like the luxury room, you know. Yeah, pretty cool. What I'm going to do, I'm going to talk to the housekeeper, because there's also a trading area, and you can come in here, and this is where you can practice, like, all of your, like, weapons. So if you need to practice combos, or figure out controls or whatever, like, you can do that in here. There's 14 different types of weapons, so, you know, that's quite a bit. You know, I'm sure you'll find one you'll like. What's funny is that I think there's a Monster Hunter game. It was Japan only, but I think it was like an MMO, I want to say. I think it was an MMO. I don't remember exactly. But, I just know it was Japan only, but that had 2 other weapons. It had, like, this like, transforming, like, magnet weapon. I forgot what it was called. I don't know, it kind of looked like a, it was like a double-ended, like, it looked like a bow, but it wasn't a bow. It was like, it was a blade, and you'd use it to, like, hit stuff instead of shoot. And then, like, it could turn into, like, something that kind of looked like a mace, almost. I don't know. It was a morphing weapon. And then the other one was like a set of tonfas, and I do think like those 2 really could have, like, I don't know, they would have been fun to use, definitely. I kind of wish they'd have added them in this game. I don't think they're in Monster Hunter Rise either. They were sort of only in that particular Japan-only game, I think, and they weren't ever, like, put into any of the games that were released worldwide. Anyway, as I said, 14 different weapons in the game. This is the sword and shield, which is actually, I think that's the default weapon that you'll be wearing when you start the game. And then if you want to use something else, you can go into that treasure chest and change which weapon you want. You get one of each when you start. But yeah, the sword and shield, it's a small sword and a small shield, and it's sort of it's a very simple kind of jack-of-all-trades weapon. As you can see, the sword does slashing damage. Because the game does have different damage types, and depending on where on the monster you're hitting depends on, like, how much damage you do. You know, there's still, like, the slashing, the crushing, and the piercing. Although, well, the crushing, it's called, like, stun damage, I think. So, yeah. The sword portion does slash. And then, but you can also use your B combo, B or circle, whatever your controller is, and attacking with B allows you to almost exclusively use the shield, and that does stun damage. And then there's like a combo finisher. We can leap up in the air and, you know, do some acrobatics, and yeah, it's real great. So yeah, sword and shield. Oh, also, it has a really fast sheathing animation, which is a luxury you don't get for a lot of other weapons. And then also, too, yeah, you're allowed to use items while you have the weapon drawn. Although, like I said, it's kind of, I don't know. I mean, it's kind of redundant because it's like, the sheathing animation is so quick, like, you probably don't even need to, but, you know, it's there. It's the only weapon that allows you to do that. Next up, we've got dual blades. Actually, this applies to both dual blades and sword and shield. As you can see, they don't do a ton of damage per hit, but they're really fast. So what they don't have in terms of power, they make up for with speed. And the cool thing about dual blades is that it does have a it has something called demon mode. So you can activate that, and your character will start backhanding both weapons. And it allows you to attack even faster, and it even gives you some new attacks, like that spinning attack. It's good for sort of being mobile while still doing damage. You can also do that. That does a massive amount of damage, so you can do that while the enemy is downed. Get some good damage in there. And then, so you're in demon mode, and you do have like a meter up in the top left, and when that fills up, and you exit demon mode, because demon mode, even if you're not moving, it drains stamina. So if you either exit demon mode or you're forced out of it because you ran out of stamina, once you come out, you're in archdemon mode. So your knives will still be glowing, and you'll mostly be back to normal, but a few of the moves you had in demon mode will still be available, like the spinning move, and you get to do sort of a weaker version of the blade dance as well. So it's just sort of a good kind of like holdover until you can get your stamina back and go back into demon mode. I did use dual blades a bit, you know, if there was a monster, because charge blade was what I mained for most of the game. But, you know, sometimes it can leave you wide open with all the morphing and stuff that the weapon does. So, like, if I needed something a lot faster that gave me more mobility, usually dual blades would be what I'd go to. But that didn't happen too often. Alright, Great Sword next. And the Great Sword is, it's kind of the opposite of the other two weapons. It's slow, but it's really powerful. The combo that you're going to want to do is the True Charge Slash combo, because this hit right here, if I didn't miss, does a shit ton of damage if you get it to land. So that's usually you're going to be running in and out, sheathing and unsheathing your weapon and just getting little, you know, hits in like that, backing up, sheathing, running away, going back in, doing it again. Oh, monster gets downed. True Charge Slash. And yes, you can charge up each of these moves as well. Oh, come on. So yeah, what it doesn't offer you in mobility, you get back in raw damage. It also has a sweeping attack, as you can see, so you can get multiple enemies. It's got an upward swing that you can kind of use, I guess, if a monster is a bit taller than you. You can use that and kind of just whack them. Although the initial combo has a lot of overhead swings as well, so that's probably not going to be needed as much. Yeah, almost all of these are overhead swings. Because this sword is also so damn big, you can also guard with it, so yeah, that's nice. You can, you know, so if you're in a position where you can't really evade in time, you can always block attacks like this. Next up, we've got the longsword, which is the weapon I probably use the second most out of all of them. You could say it's my secondary main. Yeah, it's a giant katana. It's not quite as simple as the greatsword, though. So the longsword has basically one continuous combo, which is 2 slashes, a jab, and then a rising slash with Y. If you press B, you can do the jab first, and then go straight into your Y combo. You can also press Y and B at the same time in whatever direction, and you'll sort of do like an evading slash, where you'll kind of swipe, and then like move over. I think by default you go to the back, but if you're doing it in the middle of a combo, you can do it from side to side as well. So that's really neat. This move is actually very underrated. This move can kind of save you, honestly. If you're in the middle of a combo and you realize the monster is like about to do like a really big attack and you don't have time to sheath the weapon and run away, but like maybe you can like kind of fade out of the way. You can kind of sort of strafe this way just in time to kind of avoid it. Just like with the dual blades, it also has a meter up in the top left. And as you hit stuff, the meter fills up. And what you want to use the meter to do is your spirit combo. Well, fundamentally, the meter is sort of your way of powering up the sword. The basic way to do that is the spirit combo, which you press the right trigger 4 times to do. If that 4th hit connects, then your sword will, the meter will glow white, and your, well, your sword does become white as well, or it glows white. And basically, there's different levels to it. So if you do it 3 times, see, I'll do it again, now it turns yellow. And if I do it again, it's going to turn red. And like I said, the sword will also share the same glowing color as the as whatever color the meter is. Oh, one more thing about the meter before I go on. The more you progress through your colors, the stronger your attacks will become. So attacks that you do while you're white are going to be stronger than if you have no meter. Attacks that you do while the sword is yellow is going to be stronger than white, and then red is going to be stronger than yellow. And then red is the strongest. But in the middle of a combo, you can also do something called a special sheath, where your character will sheath the sword, and when the sword is sheathed, you can do one of 2 things. Actually, let me fill up to red right quick. So when the sword is sheathed, you can do something called an EI slash, where you'll attack, And the important thing about the EI Slash is that it'll cause the your spirit meter to regenerate automatically without you having to hit anything. So like if you do an EI Slash and then like the monster starts like doing some crazy stuff and you can't really you have to play defensively, you can't really hit it as much, you know, that's good because it'll allow the meter to fill up while that's going on. And then also you can do special Sheath, and then you can press the right trigger and do like a counter attack. And what that does is it'll allow you to sort of give yourself some like free invincibility frames. Like, so let's say a monster is charging at you and you're in this stance, you can do the attack, and if you manage to time it right when the monster is about to hit you, you won't take any damage and it won't deplete your meter either. So that's kind of good, you know. And then there's another thing you can do. So if you have some spirit meter in you and you're in the middle of a combo and the monster's about to attack, you can also do something called a Foresight Slash. And if you time it correctly, you'll be able to counterattack right after. Actually, I wonder if I can try it on this barrel. Nope. Okay, I fucked myself over. Alright, hold on. Is there another explosive one? Yeah, there is. Okay. Come on. Alright, no, I'm gonna try this. But yes, there is something you can do called a Foresight Slash. But basically, if the monster is about to attack you, and you evade out the way soon enough... Oh, I almost did it. Whatever, I give up. You'll know if you evaded because, like, if you did it correctly... actually, if you have vibration on, your controller will vibrate. But if you don't, because I know a lot of people don't like vibration, if you don't have it turned on, you'll also be able to tell because, like, you'll see, like a blue silhouette of your character will also appear if you do it correctly. And if you pull it off right, you'll be able to, like, do a counterattack. You'll go right into your round slash. And you'll get a free colored meter from doing that. And then the other attack that I didn't mention for longsword is the Helm Breaker. You'll jab the sword into the target, jump up, and you can swipe downwards, and that does quite a bit of damage. And it actually has the same regenerating meter that the EI Slash has too. So yeah, that Helm Breaker is definitely your strongest move. So yeah, the longsword, it's one of those sort of, you know, easy to learn but very difficult to master type of weapons, you know. It's easy to use, but, you know, there is some depth to it. And like I said, it's probably the second most used weapon that I have. Alright, next up we've got the hammer. The hammer is kind of like the greatsword. It's pretty damn simple. You've got your regular Y combo, which is just 3 hits. You do like a golf swing at the end of it, which does a lot of damage. And then the other combo is this really long, you know, bonking combo. That's generally the combo you're going to want to use if the monster is downed. The hammer can also be charged if you hold down the right trigger. You can do this spinning move. That's neat. You're probably not going to do that often though. The purpose of charging is if you start charging but then press B, you'll sort of like permanently power up your hammer and it'll stay that way until you get hit. And that makes your hits even stronger. But I will say that is not the most interesting thing about the hammer. This is the most interesting thing about the hammer. If you see a slope, and you start charging, and then you run down the slope, and then you let go, you'll do this really cool spinning move. And like, it is so satisfying. It's funny to look at, but it's also so satisfying to pull off, because it's like you'll do this, jump up, and like, just doing that and just getting a monster like directly in the head. You know, real satisfying to pull off. Especially if they get knocked over after that, because when you stun enemies, because hammers obviously do exclusively, like, stun damage. You know, once there's enough buildup of stun, that'll cause them to fall over. So it's a really easy way to make more openings during a fight. Alright, next up we've got the Hunting Horn, which is basically just a bigger hammer with extra features. It also does stun damage. Unlike the hammer though, you'll notice there's like a list of like songs and stuff up in the top right corner of the screen. When you do various combos, you get to play certain songs. And the thing with these songs is that these songs are actually buffs, so they give you like attack boost, defense boost, ailment resistance, and stuff like that. So it's also a really good weapon for like support. You know, if you're doing like multiplayer. I mean, you can use this in single player as well. Like, it does really good on its own as well, but you can also definitely like use it to buff your teammates as well. And then another thing as well, you can store certain songs. So let's say you didn't want to use a song right away. You can like store it, and you can have like up to 3 of them stored at a time, and then like pressing the button combination it shows you, you'll get to play the songs in whatever order you please. So let's say I wanted to start with attack up. I do that, I play the song, then I can keep pressing right trigger to play the other songs if I want. So yeah, I didn't use it much, but you know, from what I did use from it, it was an alright weapon. Okay, next we've got the lance, which is, I did use this weapon a little bit. It's a lance and you get a big shield. Actually, lance and as well as its cousin, the gun lance, those two weapons actually have the strongest shields in the game, as far as how much like you get knocked back when you get hit with something. So lance, it's very simple. Your Y combo, you poke straight ahead of you, and for your B combo, you kind of poke a bit diagonally. So if you're fighting something and you're where you're trying to aim, it's a little higher than you use B. If not, you go with Y. You can block, obviously. You can also do something called you can also do like a block and counter. So like if an enemy hits you while you're in this stance, you'll counterattack. Actually, let me try it with this thing. Yeah, like that. And the only thing with the lance, actually with a lot of weapons that have like big shields or multiple pieces, it does take a while to sheath the weapon, and that's because you're not really supposed to sheath it. Once you unsheath the lance, or the gun lance if that's what you're using, you're supposed to keep it out and stay on the monster's ass for as long as you possibly can. You're not really supposed to dodge roll with this, you're supposed to block everything. So, yeah, do that. The shield is your friend with these kind of weapons. You can also do a sweeping attack if you need to hit multiple enemies. Oh, another thing, this is like the funniest move that the lance knows, by the way. You can, while you're blocking, if you press Y and B at the same time, you'll start dashing. And like, you'll just deal continuous damage to whatever you end up hitting. And you can keep doing it as long as your stamina runs out or until you run into a wall. So yeah, lance, pretty neat. Next up, we've got the America edition of the lance, the gun lance. It's a lance, but it has a gun. So the gun lance doesn't have the counterattack that the lance does. But what you can do, so Y is like your normal melee attacks, and then B is for shooting stuff. And then you can reload by blocking and pressing B. And also, while you're shooting, you can also... Well, yeah, you can do that. That's called a, it's called a worm stake attack, where you can like leave an explosive inside of the monster and it blows up. But like if you're shooting, you can press right trigger and B to quickly reload, and kind of just do an infinite shooting combo. And I think the cool thing about the shelling is that when you shoot stuff, it ignores defense, so it doesn't matter where on the monster you hit. As long as you make contact, all shells do the same damage all around. Yeah, the worm stake combo is... this. I had accidentally done it, but there it is again. And then you can also do something called the Wyvern's Fire, where if you block, but then you press Y and B at the same time, you'll do this really cool looking explosion move. It does a lot of damage, but you can only use it like every now and then, because then like it overheats your weapon and you gotta kind of wait for it to cool off before you can do that again. So yeah, Gun Lance, it blows shit up. Next up, we've got the Switch Axe. This is a weapon that has two modes. It's got its axe mode, and it's got its sword mode. And actually, I had initially thought that the axe mode was stronger, but it turns out the sword mode is stronger. That's where you're going to be doing a whole lot of your damage from. So that was news to me. So generally, you kind of want to stay in axe mode for mobility, but you switch to sword mode when you get an opening. But yeah, the axe mode has two combos. You've got your regular swings with Y, and then you have an infinite combo, the wild swing, they can do with B. I almost said charge blades. Switch axes also have files. So, like, the more you hit something in sword, as the sword mode powers up, it'll start dealing, like, bonus ticks of damage depending on what element it is. As you can... What is this? What type is this? I think it's blast type. Oh, it's just power file. Okay, it's just power. Whatever. The different switch axes have different file types. Sometimes they're elements, sometimes they're ailments. You can also do this thing. It's called an element discharge, where you just jab the thing in and just jab the thing in and then it explodes. So pretty cool. I didn't use it too much. It looks like an interesting weapon, but I just never used it much. Maybe I'll use it a bit more in the next game, but I never used it much in this one. Next, we've got the other major transforming weapon, which is Charge Blade, which is the weapon that I actually mained for most of the game. So Charge Blade is kind of three weapons in one. It's got, you know, it can be a sword and a shield, but it can also turn into a giant axe, where the shield portion becomes the blade and then it sort of sits on the sword. The sword has its Y attacks. B attacks in sword and shield mode are actually used for charging up your files, because the charge blade has files as well. And when they turn orange, it means that they're full and you can store your files by pressing right trigger and B. And then when you have files stored, by pressing... There's actually a proper button combination for it, but I just do it by pressing Y and B over and over again. You can do what's called an amped element discharge. You morph into axe mode and swipe at the target, and then you deal damage, and then you deal like a few extra ticks from the files. Usually though, what you want to do your combo, act like you're doing an amped element discharge, but at the last second press the trigger, and it'll store your files into the shield. You'll see the shield icon glows pink, and then the shield itself kind of has like a red sort of glow to it now. And that's important because if you fill up your files again and store them with a charged up shield, you can do something called a super amped element discharge, which is stronger, and it unloads all of the files at once. So that's something you usually want to do when you get an opening. Another thing you want to do, it's not really necessary, but it's kind of if you get time, you can do it. If you go into the storage stance and then hold the Y button down, you can actually charge up your sword with whatever element, whatever file element you have. Mine is just basic impact files, so yeah. But then whenever you hit anything with a sword, it does a few extra ticks of damage. And then it does also have a mode called the Savage Axe mode, so if you act like you're going to go into your super amped element discharge, but then you press the left trigger, you'll go into Savage Axe mode, which is like a buzzsaw mode. And it's generally good if you're finding like a monster that's really mobile and maybe you can't get him to hold still enough for a super amped element discharge, you can use Savage Axe instead and kind of keep your mobility, leave yourself less open. And that is a very simple explanation of the Charge Blade, because if I was to fully explain it in depth, we'd probably be here all day. It's kind of funny though, because the Charge Blade, a lot of people view it as like one of the hardest weapons to use in the game, but like, I kind of warmed up to it, like I kind of felt right at home using it. Like, it is a lot to keep track of, but it's just kind of funny that the weapon that's kind of seen as one of the hardest, I actually ended up using. Charge Blade, yeah, pretty cool. Next we've got the Insect Glaive, which is actually the weapon that I was using a whole lot back when I played the game on PS4. Then I switched over to the PC version and I wanted to use something else, but yeah. Insect Glaive is basically a, some of them are like spears, other times they're like staves, but yeah, it's a relatively quick pole arm weapon. And then obviously you also have the you have a Kinsect, the large insect that's on your right hand. And what you can do, you can kind of aim with it, and you can press Y to send it out and call it back, and you'll get buffs. So depending on which part of the monster the insect connects with, well, it's called a Kinsect, I should call it. Depending on which part of the monster the Kinsect connects with, it depends on what kind of buffs you'll get. So there's a strength buff, a speed buff, and I think the orange one is defense. And it kind of depends on which part of the monster that you target. So usually targeting the head gives you strength, the legs or the wings gives you speed, and I think bodies and tails give you defense, but I could be wrong. They're also very good at aerial combat because you can use the weapon to pole vault, and this makes it really good to mount monsters as well. You can also attack while you're in the air. And another thing too, you can kind of play the floor as lava with this thing, because like if you pole vault and then press B when you hit something, your character will go up in the air again. And basically it'll stay that way until your character hits the ground. So especially on a really big monster, yeah, you can definitely sort of play, you know, the floor is lava, which is pretty fun. Alright, next up is the bow. It's a weapon that specializes in ranged attacks. Actually, all of the weapons we're about to cover from here on out are going to be ranged. You can either aim with it, or you can just shoot. And then you also have different types of coatings that you can give your weapon as well. And most of the coatings are like sort of ailments, or, you know, there's like a close range coating and so on. Pressing B, you'll get to do like sort of spread shots. And the end of the B combo actually has you shooting, I guess, this bag of rocks, and it can kind of rain down on the target. And the rocks actually do deal stun damage, so you could help to stun with a bow if you feel so inclined. Next, we've got the bow guns, not to be confused with the bow that I just covered a second ago. So you have light bow guns and heavy bow guns. This right here that I'm holding is a light bow gun. Kind of the same thing with the bow. You aim with the left trigger, shoot with the right one. You can also, just like with the bow, you can also put different types of ammo on it. Although usually, I should say with all the ranged weapons, your ammo types are usually dependent on what type of weapon you have. So like, one bowgun usually cannot hold every single ammo type. Usually they can only hold certain types of ammo. So you might have one bowgun that can have like, you know, trank ammo or paralysis ammo, but another one might not be able to hold those two types. Another thing you can do with light bowguns, you can press B, and you can like plant these mines all over the place. Basically, whenever you shoot at it, it'll cause more explosions for more damage. So yeah, that's the light bowgun, not much. Well, I don't know, there probably is more to it, but like, I barely used it. I hardly ever used the bowguns. Then we have its cousin, the heavy bowgun. It's bowgun, but bigger. Most of what I said about light bowgun still applies here. It's obviously heavier, so your mobility does kind of take a hit. Depending on which type of bowgun, heavy bowgun that you have as well, it also depends on what your B function is going to be. So for example, there's some bowguns, I think, where like if you press B, it turns it into like a sniper, where it has like a stealth function, where you get to kind of hide somewhere and sort of shoot the enemy without them detecting you. This one though, you just put in some special ammo and you get to shoot even harder. So yeah, something you probably do when the enemy is downed and you have an opening. And yeah, that's all the weapons. Anyway, return to HQ. So, yeah, as I said, base Monster Hunter World covers low and high rank missions. After you clear that, you'll get to go to Iceborne, but before I talk about that, there are some other things you can do. I think as of this video, like, all of the event quests are available permanently, so if you ever want to do those, like, they're readily available. There's also, like, a couple, like, collaboration events. So there was, like, a Witcher 3 collaboration where you get to fight, like, a Leshen. Actually, you get to play as Geralt while you do it as well, which is kind of cool. And then there's even a Final Fantasy crossover quest. I never did do it. I heard he was hard, but there is a Final Fantasy hunt where you get to fight Behemoth. Actually, a reward for beating him. I heard he's pretty hard even with Master Rank gear. But when you beat him, you get to craft Dragoon armor and a spear. Specifically the Final Fantasy XIV Dragoon armor. So I thought that was pretty cool. When you start Iceborne, you also get to go to a new base. Well, first of all, I'll show you the research base. Yeah, this is the research base, and I don't know. It's a really chill place. I like going here, but the thing with the research base is it doesn't have a canteen, if I'm not mistaken, so like, it can't completely replace the other two, but you know, it is here. You get to visit it sometimes during the story. It's cool. It's got really calming music, so yeah, that's cool. You know, you got a frickin'... You got Best Girl up here, Third Fleet Master, sitting up here in a pile of books and candles and whatever the fuck is inside of those pots. I don't know if I want to know. So here we are in Celana. So this is the base that you get to go to for Iceborne. You end up over here because basically a Legiana, which is a ice-type monster, you fight it during the base game. You see a whole group of them migrating, I guess further north, if I had to assume. And, you end up here. So basically, a good chunk of, the people in Astera, they come over here and set up base here. So, you'll see a lot of people, who were over, in the other base, they get to permanently come here. It's got all the same facilities that the, that Astera had. There is one thing different though. If you go up here, there's something called the Steamworks, and this is basically just a mini game, but it's an easy way to get like consumable items and especially like armor spears and stuff to upgrade your armor. So I think that's probably the one thing that's unique about Celana. Also too, let me show you what your Iceborne room looks like. And then we can talk about the rest of the story. So yeah, this is your Iceborne room, you know. Pretty freaking cool, huh? It's actually 2 stories, because yeah, you go down here, you got all this good shit, you know. Over here you can choose to put certain armor on display as well. Yeah, so back to the story. So like I said, you do end up in Celana. A lot of the Iceborne story revolves around you chasing down this new monster called Velkhana. It's a dragon that can... It's an elder dragon, actually. Monster Hunter apparently it tends to do these things called like flagship monsters, where it'll have like they'll release a game and they'll have that monster kind of be like the main sort of mascot of that particular game. They'll usually have like one for the base game and then one for the re-release or the expansion. So for World, for example, like Nergigante, who he's an elder dragon that has like a lot of like spikes and stuff, and he can like launch them at you. He was sort of the flagship monster for base Monster Hunter World. I actually like him, he's pretty cool. He kind of sounds like a chain smoker, because whenever he roars, he goes like, like he's about to throw up or some shit. But yeah, he's pretty cool. He was actually one of the first like walls that I ran into with this game. I don't know, I had a hard time beating him. He definitely had this dive bombing attack where he'd like frickin' jump up and just dive at you. And that could take out basically your entire health bar if you didn't know how to avoid it. I had to go learn about Superman diving. If you sheath your weapon in time and then you like sort of dash away and like dodge roll at the last second, you'll like do like you'll do a dive that kind of looks like Superman, and like it'll give you some invincibility frames, and that has saved my life throughout this game more times than I would like to admit. But yeah, Nergi's pretty cool. Actually, the end of the base game kind of had you fighting like a whole gauntlet of elder dragons, because you fought Nergigante, you fought this one called Teostra. It kind of looked like a manticore. Almost like it had like the head of a lion and bat wings and stuff. You had a Kusala Deora, which I like him, but I hate fighting him. You're gonna hear me say that a lot. Oh, I like this monster, I just hate fighting it. But he can make like a whole bunch of tornadoes, and then he flies a lot too, so it's really hard to attack him with a melee weapon. And then the tornadoes can like, the wind pressure can like blow you away, so it'll make it really hard to get near him. But yeah, he was annoying. And then there's another one like Valhazak, where like he literally like, he's like this sort of like almost like an undead monster. He's not really undead, but like he literally wears like the corpses of other monsters as like his skin. Other like forms of life can't even get near him without like getting like infected and shit. You know, it's really weird, but it's also kind of cool. Like, alright, you know the kid who you went to school with and like he would never wash his ass? Because like the smell would always take like 5 minutes to leave the room after they did? Yeah, that type of person. Like they took that concept, but made it cool. So yeah, Valhazak was pretty nice. The only thing is he does have like an ailment that like, because of his smell, like it'll cut your HP in half. So like you'd need like items to like restore your health. Otherwise you'd get like slapped around and die really quickly because you don't have much HP to work with. When I say cut your HP in half, I don't mean like deal half damage. I mean like your HP bar gets shrunk down to half of its size, type of thing, like permanently. And you have to like undo that. When you first start up Iceborne, I actually kept hearing that like the difficulty spike between the base game and Iceborne is significant. It doesn't matter how good your high rank gear is, even the shittiest piece of master rank gear is still going to be leagues better than whatever high rank gear you had. And when I did my first like fight in Iceborne, I still had high rank gear because I didn't have a chance to craft anything else yet. And yeah, like the fight wasn't hard, but it took a while because like the enemy had that much more HP and that much more defense. It wasn't after I went and crafted like the lowest ranking piece of master rank gear, and I went to go fight that same monster again, and like it was a night and day difference. I'd say the next wall I ran into was probably the Bariath. It's this flying saber-toothed tiger. Yeah, I know. Yeah, he kicks my ass quite a bit. Normal Bariath, not Frostfang Bariath. Frostfang Bariath was also another type of hell entirely, but another thing you'll notice with Iceborne being an expansion, it does bring in a lot of new monsters, be it actual new monsters or like returning like veteran monsters from older games. You'll also notice a lot of monsters too, just like in God Eater, or rather God Eater is like Monster Hunter, but like other monsters too, they'll be like the same species technically, but they'll be a different color. They'll be a different color and command a different element. Kind of like a shiny Pokemon. And they'll have like updated moves and stuff like that. So there was a lot of that too. Iceborne also added another feature. It was called like the Clutch Claw. And actually I didn't really like Clutch Claw that much. So Clutch Claw kind of lets you, well, let me talk about the good things. Clutch Claw does let you like grapple onto monsters or whatever. And there is this thing you can do with the Clutch Claw. It's actually pretty damn funny. If the monster isn't enraged, like if it's just normal, you can grapple onto its face, guide it towards a wall, and unload all of your slinger ammo into like its eye, and that'll cause it to like run forward and like ram its head into the wall and fall over like it's a guaranteed knockdown, and it's so fucking funny to do. So yeah, that was fun to do, but like the downside is Clutch Claw also kind of made it mandatory to like tenderize monsters. If you Clutch Claw onto a monster and then you attack it, you just press Y or triangle or whatever, it'll basically wound the monster in that specific area, and then whenever you hit it again with your normal attacks after you come off, it'll do more damage. And they kind of made tenderizing mandatory. Like, hunts take a lot longer if you don't tenderize parts. It kind of reminds me of Blood Rage and God Eater 2, well, God Eater 2 Rage Burst more specifically, where it's like Blood Rage was really overpowered and stuff, but like, because of that, they filled up the later part of the game with a bunch of survival missions and like, or like areas that were like full of multiple origami. Like, they intentionally made the game more tedious to balance out for Blood Rage. And if you were someone that didn't really want to use Blood Rage as much, then the game just became needlessly harder for you. And I kind of feel the same way with the Clutch Claw and the tenderizing in this game. From Iceborne onwards, it kind of felt like the game was kind of forcing you to use that new mechanic. So after Velkhana is slain, some more time passes and you fight the final boss of the story, which is this monster called Shara Ishvalda. It's an elder dragon. It kind of looks like Xenojiva. It kind of has the same like body shape, but it's like completely coated in rocks, and you have to like break the rock layer of it before you get to fight the actual dragon. And then you kill it, and then the game ends. Well, the game doesn't end, but like the Iceborne section of the story ends. Everything else after that is patches. Just take into consideration what I'm about to say next, though, because, you know, you do some patch content, which is like, you know, a bunch of special assignments, you meet even more new monsters, but then you find out that there's this one monster that showed up. It's called Safi Jiva, and just like as you probably could guess just by its name, it is like the adult form of Xenojiva. It's either, I don't know if it's the same Xenojiva that we killed, quote-unquote, in the base game, or if it's another one that kind of just slipped away and grew up off screen. But yeah, Safi Jiva, it's basically a grown-up Xenojiva, and the thing with Safi Jiva is, it's actually one of the black dragons. Hello everyone, this is Weapons from the Future speaking. I want to make a clarification on the term black dragon before I continue with the video. I thought that this particular group of monsters were called the Black Dragons, but after doing a little bit of research, it turns out the group of monsters that I was actually referring to were not called Black Dragons. The term Black Dragon really only applies officially to Fatalis, his variants, and any monsters directly related to him. The proper name, which isn't really much of a name, but they're called like first class like threat monsters or like forbidden monsters or whatever. That's actually the proper name for them. But regardless, like the principle is still the same. They're like monsters that are so dangerous that they're in a league of their own, and Safi Jiva is still one of those monsters. But I just wanted to make that distinction before continuing. So now back to the video. And the black dragons, they're like these special type of elder dragon, but like they're like really, really powerful. Like they're like, you got like elder dragons, but you got like some dragons that are more elder than others. Respect your elders, I guess. They're like elder dragons. They're usually like so dangerous that they gotta be dealt with like immediately, otherwise like they will like indiscriminately like usually end everything, like both human and monster alike. Safi Jiva is one of the black dragons, which, although that's weird because Safi Jiva is actually red, not black. But yeah, and actually Safi Jiva is so powerful that the Safi Jiva has an entire like siege mechanic to it, where you basically have to beat it in multiplayer. So like you have to form a party at the Gathering Hub and beat it through a series of multiplayer hunts. I mean, I guess you could try and solo it, but I don't think the time limit allows you to. But yeah, the Safi Jiva fight was pretty fun. The next of the black dragons that you had to fight was, what's he called? Alatreyan. And he's this dragon that can, he can switch his elements. So like he can switch from using fire to dragon to ice. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, dragon is an actual element in this game. It kind of works the same way that divine does in God Eater, where a lot of enemies that use the dragon element are also weak to it. But yeah, he can switch between 3 elements. I'm gonna be honest, he was the most annoying monster in the entire game. Like, I was stuck on him for a good several weeks. His design is really cool, I do like him, but I don't like fighting him. I feel like I've said that like 5 times now. Part of the issue too is that there's so many mechanics to him. Like, first of all, you have to bring an elemental weapon to the fight. He usually starts in his fire mode, so you have to bring an ice weapon, or if he starts in ice, which I think there's one quest that does that, then you have to start with a fire type weapon. What you want to do is you bring whatever weapon is the opposite of what he's starting out as. And you have to, there's a DPS check. You have to make sure you deal enough damage to him with your elemental weapon that it contains his power. Then he switches to the dragon element, and what you gotta do is you gotta frickin' knock him in the face and break his horn, because breaking his horn is gonna weaken his nuke attack. And what is the nuke attack, you may ask? The nuke attack is where he frickin' blows up the whole screen, and it'll deplete your HP so fast that you won't be able to like use like any like max potions or anything to like out heal it. So your only chance of surviving is to bust up his horn, weaken his elemental power with your elemental weapon, and then when he's about to use the move, ideally, you know, set up a health booster if you have time, chew an Astera jerky, and then, you know, sit there and pray that you can out heal his damage and you don't wipe. Because the thing with multiplayer quests is, for most hunts, you have 3 attempts to beat the monster. If you faint 3 times, you lose. But those 3 feints in multiplayer quests are shared amongst all participating members. So if you're in a party of 4, and let's say Alatrean's about to do his nuke attack, you manage to get out alright, but your other 3 teammates fainted, that doesn't count as 1 death, that counts as 3 deaths. So there's just a lot of room for error there, but you know, I did manage to beat him. I think the thing that sucks the most about Alatrean though is that his armor is frickin' like, it's so underwhelming. Well, okay, I should say the female armor is underwhelming. The male one looks cool, but the female one is like literally just like a regular looking dress with scales on it. And like, this thing is supposed to be like this really, really powerful, you know, it can change up elements at will type shit, you know, don't fuck with it type of monster. And like, it just, the female armor just looks so lame. You can see the Alatrean charge blade over there, that looks pretty cool, but like, yeah, the weapons for it look kind of cool, but the armor, the female armor, not so much. And then the true final boss of the entire game is Fatalis, who, he's the most powerful monster in this game, and he's also one of the most powerful monsters in the entire franchise. The only monsters that are actually stronger than him are his own variants, which would be, I think there's a Crimson and a White Fatalis. So yeah, Fatalis is like the most powerful black dragon. He like completely destroyed an entire country, I think that's what the game said. So he's basically like the closest thing that Monster Hunter has to an actual god. And weirdly enough, I do think his design is a bit underwhelming, because like, he has all this hype going for him, but like, he looks like just a normal like Western dragon. I don't know. I just think that's a bit weird. Like, I don't know, I'm not the biggest fan of his design. I think they could have made him look a bit more unique, but then again, Fatalis was around since like Monster Hunter 1, so, you know, maybe he looked interesting for that time. Now granted, he is powerful though, don't get me wrong, like the actual fight with Fatalis, like he does hit like a truck, so, you know, he's got the moves to back it up, even though his design isn't all that, but like, you know, I'm just saying, I wish they had been a little more creative with his design. I will say though, even though Fatalis is the strongest monster in the game, I actually found him easier than Alatrean, because Alatrean, he had all those mechanics to him and all that stuff and just so much to keep track of. But with Fatalis, it's like he was stronger, but the fight was simpler, because it was more like you get thrown in there and it's basically just do what you always do, don't get hit. You know, as long as you get good and you don't get hit, you'll be fine. So I found Fatalis easier than Alatrean just because it was more straightforward. And unlike Alatrean, the Fatalis weapons and the armor are actually pretty damn good. The Alatrean weapons, in terms of power, they're not, you know, much to write home about, but they at least have a good design. The Fatalis armor is the most overpowered armor in the entire game. You'll be able to put in all the skills you want and then some. Like, it's really, really cool. And then, actually, I have Fatalis' Charge Blade strapped to my back right now. Oh, another cool thing, when the Fatalis Charge Blade opens, you can see his eye right here. But, like, in a shot like this, where I have the axe mode out, if you move the camera, the eye actually kind of tracks the camera, which I think is cool, because it kind of implies that Fatalis is still alive inside of the weapon. I'm not really sure how I feel about that, but, you know, I think it's a nice little detail. So yeah, Fatalis, you know, he's hard, but he is worth it to beat because his equipment is it's completely broken. Although I would say, I think my favorite monster in the entire game, though, in terms of like how the monster looks, not necessarily just, you know, what equipment does it give, but just in terms of like looks, is probably Namiel. It's a elder dragon that you fight in Iceborne. It's like this fish dragon, but like what he does, or is it a girl? I don't remember. Like, it can squirt like water and create all these puddles and stuff. But then it can channel like electricity and like use it to like zap those same puddles and do like, you know, electric damage and stun you. So it's like, I like how it kind of takes advantage of both of those elements. That's pretty cool. But at the same time too, it's not like Namiel is like completely obnoxious or a chore to fight, so yeah. I'd probably say my favorite monster in terms of design is probably Namiel. The Namiel equipment though does look kind of weird. The Namiel armor looks like an overgrown Splatoon Inkling, but yeah, Namiel was pretty cool. What else? What else? I feel like I'm missing some stuff. I don't think so. I think I said everything I probably wanted to say. Like I said, you know, the game is really good. Really fun. It's also a game that, like, I found, like, you know, if I just felt like chilling or I was feeling really down and, you know, just, I needed something that I could just mindlessly play and kind of turn my brain off to, you know, especially if I needed to, like, listen to something or whatever, and I just needed to play a game in the background to just kind of keep my hands occupied. You know, this game definitely helped to scratch that itch as well. So I'm thankful to it for that. That's probably how I have so much time in it, because sometimes I would just, like, I'd be listening to a podcast or something, and I'd just turn this game on and just mindlessly go hunt something, you know, while listening. So, yeah, that was definitely something that, you know, I did often. I don't really have much else to say. You know, I will be playing Monster Hunter Rise pretty soon, on my own time, mostly. You know, I might do another, like, sort of video like this talking about Monster Hunter Rise when I beat it. But yeah, that's Monster Hunter World for you. So, you know, the drill. If you enjoyed this video, you know, do give it a like. Sub to the channel if you haven't already. Special thanks to all channel members for your continued support. I really appreciate it. And I will see you guys again, you know, whenever.